Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Welcome to this episode of Alien Lizard Humanoids. Tonight we'll be looking at the ongoing case of Jussie Smollett. We'll get started with introductions. Jeff, we'll start with you.
My name's Jeff Pincin. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Delaware and Pennsylvania. I specialize in the treatment of OCD and other anxiety disorders. And if please stick around till the end. We may respond to comments and questions. Please leave a comment or a question, and we may respond to it in future videos. If I had not become a counselor, what I really wanted to do was be somebody who got hired to assault somebody else for whatever reason they wanted to. Of course, this is illegal. This is a bad idea. So I figured I had a little bit more stability and a chance to be a little bit more legal in my life, becoming a counselor. So I had to settle, and I became a counselor.
Yeah. So you missed out on all those attacks.
Right. I could have been the one doing the attacks.
All those potential attacks.
Could have been me. I could have been on the news. I mean, for all the wrong reasons, but I could have been on the news. Yeah. Not anymore.
Terrible.
Yeah. Shattered dream.
Mike?
My name's Mike Smith, also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Delaware. I specialize in narrative therapy and geek therapy, and I'm a self-styled expert in all things geek. If I had not become a counselor, I actually at one point wanted to become a lawyer who drank a little bit too much, got a DUI, and was sentenced by a judge to take care of a kid's peewee hockey team. Because I liked hockey at the time. But unfortunately, the law was just, it's just too hard. I've mentioned before wanting to be a lawyer, but law school is just not for me. And frankly, I don't drink enough to get a DUI.
That's unfortunate.
And there aren't many peewee hockey teams in the general area.
Wow.
I mean, I think there are a few, but they have all the coaches that they need.
This could almost be a movie, Mike. Like what you just described.
Almost. I don't think the premise is all that great for a movie, and I don't think it would fly. I don't think...
I mean, maybe in the 90s it would, or, whenever.
Well, maybe. The 90s was a bad time for movies anyway. They'd make anything into a movie. Like people with, jacks in the back of their head plugging themselves into computer programs or things.
Yeah, so counselors drink a lot less typically, right?
Yeah, typically,
yeah. And get drunk less frequently. So
far less frequently.
I mean, it is a good thing you don't drink enough to get a DUI.
Yeah.
Obviously, more smarter than that.
It did kill the dream of going that direction.
Who knows what that hockey team could have done?
I don't know. They might have won.
They might have gone against much greater teams and won. Yeah,
they could have gone up against teams that were better trained and had better equipment, and still we could have won. But that'll never happen, though. So those kids miss out. It's not just my shattered dream. It's the shattered dreams of those kids. It's unfortunate.
Interesting mathematics there, right? More DUIs equals happier kids on hockey teams.
Weirdly enough.
Not the best public service message, right? All right, so Jussie Smollett, wasn't there a Dave Chappelle routine about Jussie Smollett? I remember seeing some time ago where I think he kind of started off by saying, he pronounced it like Jussie Smollett or something, and the audience was like, who's he talking about? And then he said it, as if he was like French. I don't know, is it a French name?
Sounds like it could be.
I don't know.
I think it was Jussie Smollett or something like that. It was like some...
so this was maybe part of like a stand-up routine?
This was one of Dave Chappelle's shows, on whatever, HBO or Netflix, whatever. But I actually like Dave Chappelle. I know he's had the controversy and all, but comedy's an artistic expression. I view it like they can pretty much say whatever they want if they're not threatening harm. Just like you can paint something that is offensive or write a book that's offensive, and there have been many. Artistic expression through comedy should be just as protected.
In general, legally, it tends to be. Absolutely.
It has broad protection. Yeah, absolutely.
If something's satire, it's protected. But people have been attacked for artistic expressions in art with sculptures and
TV,
art.
movies.
I mean, if you're going to be a comedian, you absolutely have the right to say anything you want, but you have to expect that there may be consequences for those, as Chris Rock found out.
Well, more immediate. Right? That's the thing. I think that's what the Chris Rock, Will Smith situation changed, is if you paint something, you send it out there, it's probably unusual. Somebody's going to look at the painting and they're like, where's that person? And go find you and slap you. But when you're a stand-up comedian, especially if you do live, which some of them do, like Chris Rock was doing at the 94th Academy Awards, somebody like Will Smith could just apparently charge the stage.
Walk up on stage calmly and just...
No snipers there at the Academy Awards. No security guards. Just anybody can just march right up there.
No, they were out for COVID, apparently.
Not that we want anybody to get shot. What I'm saying is usually there's security that would like tackle somebody that tries to charge a stage. Matter of fact, it's happened before, and they have been tackled. So I don't know what was going on there, but
it's Will Smith.
Probably unexpected that the celebrities themselves would do that. Maybe somebody that's not a celebrity coming in from the outside, but I imagine it's probably unexpected that a celebrity in the award ceremony would do that.
It's almost like if one of the security guards themselves rushed the stage.
Yeah.
Like people would be like, what are you doing?
What's going on here? This is unexpected. Yeah.
It's like there is a certain level of celebrity that can do that kind of thing. Just walk up on the stage and nobody's going to say anything. I think if Halle Berry decided to walk up on that stage, she would have been, nobody would have been blinking an eye. They were like, okay, what's Halle doing up on the stage?
It's probably true.
Just accepted it. And Will Smith, again, is one of the same kinds of names in Hollywood. You know, nobody was expecting Will Smith to slap him across the face.
Yeah. I can do the I can believe the stunned deer thing, right? The deer in the headlights thing for the walk, but the slap, just that lost me. Like if he pummeled Chris Rock with like a bar, like a crowbar, where people are like, oh well, this is unusual. Let's just stay here motionless. Like when do you jump in?
Right. What's the threshold there?
I would have been impressed that he could pull a crowbar out of a tuxedo like that. Nobody knew it was there. And you just all of a sudden crowbar.
Yeah, that could have been really bad. We should do a whole separate episode on. Well, now there's more updates on it. Where apparently, I think Chris Rock said something like he's still processing it, and the Academy came out and said that they told him Will Smith to leave. So this brings up a whole new legal situation. Like, is that trespassing? Kind of seems like it would be if the people had the authority, like if they rented the venue, and they're like, you have to leave, and he's like, I'm not leaving. Men in Black, what are you gonna do? Independence Day, what are you gonna do? Like, is that how that works? Like, when you're told to leave someplace, you just, no, I'm not, no, thanks for offering, bud.
Well, it depends. If the venue was in Bel Air, he's the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. They don't have any authority over a prince.
Not just an ordinary prince, but a fresh
fresh prince of Bel Air.
That's true. All right. So, but either way, I like Dave Chappelle. I know he's had some issues, but I think Netflix has actually funded another special, so it did nothing to his career, and it shouldn't. He's a good artist. I think he does a good job. I think it's not just the material; it's his timing and his expressions that he pulls it all together. So
yeah,
unlike Jussie Smollett. So Dave Chappelle has talent. Jussie Smollett, I've never really seen any evidence that he does, but
he certainly was not able to pull it all together.
No. Interesting guy. I never really heard of him like in any major way until this case. Like I knew he existed, but that was about, like that was the limit of it, right? Like kind of like I won't call him a B actor, but kind of like a B actor. Like you recognize that they've been in things.
I've seen that guy before.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I've seen that guy somewhere before.
Yeah. So you have, these actors are kind of in the background. That's how he always struck me. But he did have a major role on that one show.
Empire.
Right. He had a major role there. And apparently he was well liked. I didn't really watch that show, so I couldn't tell you much about it. But he's been in other things too, right?
The Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, he started his career in Mighty Ducks.
Yeah. Could have been you in the coach role there, Mike. Similar to
Gordon Bombay.
What's his real Emilio
Estevez.
Emilio Estevez. Yeah, Coach Bombay. Those are great movies. Yeah. And they have a new series about it. I don't know if it's a series, but a new show or something about it more recently.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus, I believe.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who's.
I haven't gotten a chance to watch that yet. I really wanted to.
Is that John? Am I thinking of it? It's John Stamos that is the coach for that, or is that another Disney Plus? It might be a different Disney Plus special.
Is that another drunk lawyer that?
Drunk lawyer gets
they have many of them for different. It's like
wait. They made a movie out of that premise. That was my childhood dream.
It's like the rebel cop, right? There's like a ton. You know, you got your Bruce Willis and Die Hard, got your Dirty Harry and many movies, Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, Sudden Impact. It's just a character that keeps coming back up, right? The intoxicated lawyer.
If you're a lawyer, why wouldn't you be intoxicated? At least part of the time.
It's a rough business, yeah.
No, I think I was wrong on the...
Yeah, I think you were. Lauren Graham.
Okay. There's some other Disney Plus show. Maybe it has something to do with basketball. John Stamos is a coach, or he's something to do with this. Yeah, but I was getting them mixed up. Either way.
Isn't scotch like an official alcohol of lawyers?
Yeah,
I remember Law and Order, Sam Waterston's character always drank scotch. And I thought one episode he said something like, this is tradition, or everybody does this. I don't remember, but I remember looking at it thinking, oh, that's something that lawyers must do. At least in New York City, maybe.
Apparently TV lawyers all the time. Every TV lawyer has a bottle of scotch or bourbon in their office.
Texas would be kind of a bourbon, I picture. Yeah. Like a Texas lawyer.
It's always the same container, too. Like, it's always on this table off in the corner.
It's decanted into a decanter, and there's little rocks glasses off the side.
It always looks like the same decanter, the same container.
Right. Well, they don't want to use, a bottle of, Jim Beam sitting on the counter, because then they have to pay rights.
Can't they differentiate what the decanter looks like between the different shows?
Well, if you go on Amazon and look up decanters, they almost all look the same.
I think that's the problem. This needs to be varied a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Interestingly, in Hollywood, actually, most of the time, they use like iced tea instead of scotch, because you can get the same kind of coloration.
The same kind of buzz?
No, you can't get the same kind of buzz. That's the point. Like, they don't want the actors getting buzzed. So they use things that mirror the look of it. And usually they use tea. Sometimes it actually is sweetened for the actors, and other times it's not. And they just have like cold tea in a bottle.
Depends how many takes.
Yeah.
Right? You have to do. Want something tasty if you're going to be there all day. All right, so let's hear about this case. This is, I mentioned, an ongoing case. At the time we're making this video, at the moment we're making it, he's actually out of jail. He wasn't sentenced to prison. He was sentenced to jail. Yeah. Cook County Jail, it's like notoriously dangerous and horrible place. I think I was watching a documentary one time, and if I'm not mistaken, like whatever they're called, I think a sheriff runs a jail, like a warden runs a prison, sheriff runs a jail. I think the sheriff of Cook County, or whoever is responsible for the jail, was saying like they're the largest mental health provider in Illinois or like the country. I don't know. It was and he gave some stats, and it was like, wow, he does make a good argument. Like he's got a huge mental health population to care for at that jail, right? Because it is where people in Chicago go, unfortunately, for mental health treatment when they're poor.
Which is a very sad state of affairs for the country, where prison is the place you go for mental health help.
They don't know what else to do with you, and it's like, well, you did something wrong, so we're just gonna put you in jail and hope for the best.
Cook County Jail is indistinguishable from Rikers Island when you only hear it at a story level. Obviously, they look much different. They both look horrible in different ways.
I think Rikers Island is an island.
Right. Geographically, New York Island, and I don't think Cook County Jail is on any type of island. But in terms of the stories that occur in there, it's indistinguishable. They're both just hellholes, to put it bluntly, right? Just terrible places. I can understand why Jussie did not want to spend too much time there, although he was in solitary for the few days, which is protective custody, but it's the same thing. Yeah. That's what it means. Guards don't walk around with you. It's just, you're by yourself in this cell, very small cell.
Which is problematic in and of itself.
Right.
Solitary confinement is one of those punishments. The UN did a study a few years ago, is in the top 10 as far as worst punishments that could be. I think it was in the top 5. Like it was honestly like up there with certain tortures, because over a long period of time, extended period of time, the mental health damage that it can do being in solitary confinement is extensive.
Yeah, there's a real famous Supermax in Colorado. It's ADX. I can't remember, but it's the one where like Ted Kaczynski is housed, and I think the guy, was it El Chapo? I think he might be there. There was like the survivalist guy who they caught in the woods in the Carolinas somewhere, or Georgia. I can't remember his name. Eric Rudolph. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there 23 hours a day for their entire sentence.
Wow.
that is the only, as far as I know, that's the only accommodation. Like there is no other level. There might be some sort of general.
Yeah, like 1 hour a day for rec to get out and get some exercise outside of it. And
if nothing's going wrong.
Yeah, yeah, as long as nothing's going wrong. And they stagger it so they're not together at all.
Yeah, pretty terrible sentence. But that's supposed to be for the offenders. That's a supermax. So like those are the people that they don't want to take any risks and they're worried maybe somebody will get them out. Like El Chapo kind of makes sense because
they do have to worry about him in spoons. Because a spoon looks like a small shovel.
that video of him escaping from that Mexican prison is just, it's one of those where it's almost like a comedy thing, like where somebody tries to walk behind the couch like they're going down steps. You ever see that? Like comedic actors, right. It'd be like, you know, I could picture like Jim Carrey doing that or whatever. Yeah. That's what he did, except in his like semi-private bathroom. Just boop, 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 gone. That was it. It's like, and he was in on a scooter that was on like a rail, and
yeah, whole tunnel underground. It's funny, it didn't just go.
It was so brazen. Well, I guess it's like a percentage. It's like math, right? Like what percentage of the corrections officers were on a take? When you get to a certain critical mass, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, you get past that, you can just walk out.
Yeah, there have been other escapes in Mexico where people have just changed. I don't even know why they bother, but they change uniforms into like a guard uniform and walk out. It's like, why not just pull the limo up?
Right. Then get my valet.
You have your own parking spot at the jail at that point.
That's right. Escape parking only. Right.
It's like, oh, there's no escape cars ready today. You got to wait till tomorrow.
At that point, they're asking for a credit card. And
are you over 25?
Do you want the added insurance on this?
Yeah, always get the added insurance.
Especially coming from jail. You don't know what's going to happen there.
I have no idea. Bullet holes are really hard on the car.
They always get you for them. I don't know why.
They ding you for the bullet holes.
They ding you. Yeah, that's good.
So, all right. So Jussie Smollett, not currently in jail, but let's hear about his magical story to be in this situation in the first place. He has been convicted. Let's see what happened.
Magical indeed. So January 29th, 2019, Jussie told police he was attacked outside his apartment building by two white men. He reported they used racial and homophobic slurs, poured an unknown liquid on him, put a noose around his neck. He fought them off, went to the hospital, and was released later that morning. They also said that he said it may have been motivated by his criticism of Donald Trump. He said that they said something about this is MAGA country, make America great again. So many court cases and investigations into that later. The end result of all of this was that it was found out that he paid two brothers to attack him, to stage the assault, and everything that he said was false. It was all a lie. It may have happened like that, but him saying that he got attacked and didn't know anything about it was of course false. So as you said, he's out now, but there's many things that happen between now and then, many lawsuits. I think probably the best of which is the city of Chicago filing a lawsuit against him for $130,000 for the overtime that they expended investigating that hoax. So yeah, a lot here. I mean, and of course the biggest question is why? Why would you do this? Why would you have someone assault you so that you could, I don't know, recognition? I don't know what it is, but that's probably the biggest question, at least in my mind.
That is a lot of overtime.
I'd be curious how many hours that is, like, just in overtime.
I don't know. That is a lot of overtime.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to, for any city.
I don't know. I don't know how much overtime that actually would equate to. Is it a lot, or is it just like one shift for 20 officers?
No, that's a good question. I don't know.
It seems expensive given what some of the higher profile trials have cost.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe they're really determined to try to find, the attackers that didn't exist.
Right.
Well, they did find the attackers.
They did find the attackers.
It paid off. It was a consensual attack.
Right.
So, yeah, and then we have this business with prosecutor who, Kim Fox, who made a secret deal. I've never heard of this before, and I've covered a lot of cases where he had to give up his bond and do some community service, and the charges would be dropped. Is that how that works?
Deal.
Your bond? What is that even? I didn't even know that was on the table. Like, you're allowed to trade bond for escaping penalties?
I mean, I guess you could make the argument: is it the same kind of thing as paying a fine for some reason? I don't know, but either way, he's down $10,000 at that point.
Yeah, and we can talk about does jeopardy attach? It's a whole other issue that I think will be litigated at some point in this case, and I think that's why he was released. But yeah, we'll get there.
See, we'll talk about that. I don't think it does. That jeopardy does attach in that particular case because it didn't go before a judge. Like, a judge didn't say this is the plea agreement. The charges are dismissed with without prejudice. That was the prosecutor said, give up your bond, and I won't push these charges, and decided to drop them. That is not a court decision.
Right. Well, the trial judge he was convicted of 5 of 6 charges. The trial judge said that it was okay to go forward because he had never signed a plea agreement. But 2 out of 3 judges in an appeal, as I understand it, decided that it's a little murkier than that. And I think the way they're leaning is that Kim Fox was an agent of the state, which it's hard to say she wasn't. She was a prosecutor. Sure. Right. And that they have to be held to a high standard as far as entering the deal. So if they say there's a deal and you do as much as nod or shake your head a little bit, like, then it's done. That's that now jeopardy's attached. You've agreed. And, I'd want to know, did he forfeit that bond? I think he did, which means it was a penalty. Mm-hmm. And as far as I'm concerned, there's a penalty. Jeopardy attaches. But it's something for the legal people to work out. It's another murky item in this case that didn't need to be there. Right. All Kim Fox needed to do was prosecute the case. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So let's take a look at Jussie Smollett here. He was born in California in 1982. His family moved quite a bit. He graduated from high school in New Jersey. At age 19, he told his parents he was gay, and he came out publicly in 2015. He started performing in New York City. He did some modeling. He was an extra in a few movies. 1992, Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks.
Yep.
That was his, I guess you could say, big hit. I don't know if I can use the word hit with that movie, but it was a movie that people watched, and he became somewhat popular.
They still watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
spawned several sequels.
Mm-hmm. Mighty Ducks.
A recent TV series. I think it could be called a hit.
Could it? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, popular when I was growing up.
I guess.
All of them were.
Yeah. It just never really did anything for me, but I guess, people like the...
There's a lot of nostalgia for it for those who were growing up during that time.
Yeah, all right. So that was his big hit, first hit, and then he really didn't have much else until cast on Empire in 2014. That was his major break.
Yeah.
And he started recording music. I didn't listen to any of it. I don't know anything about the music thing, but that was something else he tried. He got in some trouble in 2007, which I think is relevant. It was a DUI stop in L.A., and he provided false information. He lied to the police, gave a different name. So deceiving the police maybe becomes a theme. I don't know, but that's perhaps when it started. But he was out of trouble until 2019, and this is where we see he's living in Chicago. And in January of that year, his employer, the studio, received a letter that contained a threat.
So wait, he got a DUI and didn't have to help a kid's hockey team?
What happened? I don't understand.
That's because he gave a false name, apparently.
He should have just gone with Jussie Smollett.
Should have just gone with Jussie Smollett and been like, I was in that movie.
I'm just playing it out. I mean, I don't see the problem here.
Yeah, they take him into custody. He's looking around. Where's the hockey team? So they received this kind of weird letter, and it had a stick figure that was hanging from a tree and some white powder that was tested and found to be acetaminophen, Tylenol. They're like, whatever, like they didn't do anything. Just seems strange. A week later, we see the attack that you were talking about. This was on East Lower North Water Street at 2 a.m., and Jussie was, as I understand it, returning from a Subway. And he had I assume some type of sub-type sandwich in his possession at the time of the attack. The sandwich is not harmed.
Well,
we're thankful for that.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Thank goodness. Far too often, the sandwich is harmed.
Yeah.
And
they're the first victims in these attacks.
Awesome.
Because they get thrown on the ground, and you got the pigeons, the rats, whatever, coming after them. The sandwiches never survive in those conditions.
No doubt you guys have seen these statistics. The number of sandwiches that are harmed in attacks.
It's like 99%. 99% of sandwiches are just ruined.
Those are the kind. We see these statistics all over the internet all the time.
It's disturbing.
Yeah, it really is. It's a huge problem in America. I've recently started seeing it on presidential candidate websites. You know, up there with the issues they care about. Sandwich assault. It's up there. Yeah.
And then we can't even talk about sandwich violence. It just opens up a whole new dimension of pain and suffering. Yeah. But
you get two issues on either side of a major issue.
That's right.
It just becomes a mess.
Yeah.
But Jussie Smollett, for whatever his flaws are, that man protected that sandwich.
He's the real hero here. Mm-hmm. No doubt about that.
Yeah, that sandwich. He's like, this sandwich, we're in this together. We're gonna get through this together. You're gonna make it home with me. And it did.
Given
heroic act.
Given Subway's history with choosing a bad spokesperson, I think Jussie's going to be it. Mm-hmm. I mean, people that save sandwiches, Jussie Smollett, can't go wrong.
Yeah. Well, can you really call Subway a sandwich? I mean, I don't know. I'm more of a Quiznos person, so
I like Subway well enough.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's a sandwich worth protecting.
The question is, in Chicago, can you get a really good sub? Like, that's a question out there. Like,
I would think you could.
I think, like, I don't know. So, you know, I'm used to like Philadelphia area subs, like good hoagie roll.
Hoagies, yep.
You know, the Amoroso roll. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a good classic roll, but that's not available in a lot of places in the country. So, can you get a good Subway sandwich in Chicago? It's a real question.
Yeah. Usually in big cities, they have, all different types of food. They're known for like culinary delights and, like cheesesteak, Philadelphia cheesesteak, Philadelphia sub. You would think that Chicago would have more options where he wouldn't have to go to a Subway. Mm. But maybe it was the 2 o'clock in the morning thing.
That's possible.
Maybe there's not a lot of options that are open that early in the morning. What is Chicago known for food-wise? You guys know?
The hot dogs is a big thing, as far as I know. And you're not, apparently, if you're over the age of 12, you're not allowed to have mustard or ketchup on hot dog. It has to be mustard.
Okay.
That's all I've been told.
Is that part of like a...
If you're an adult and you go to a hot dog stand or someplace in Chicago and you say, I want ketchup, they're just going to look at you and be like, no.
Is that part of like saving the hot dog? That whole theme, save the sandwich, save the hot dog from ketchup?
I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. It's just a thing, Chicago thing.
Deep dish pizza. When I search for what food is Chicago known for,
it's not even really pizza. Like
deep dish pizza.
It's more lasagna than a pizza. It's just like a pasta-less lasagna. You put dough in the middle of it. It's not real pizza, right? You know how you can tell. This is a joke from another comedian. I don't remember who said it, but you know how you can tell that they have pizza in New York and they don't in Chicago? Because they call it Chicago deep dish pizza in Chicago, and they just call it pizza in New York.
Yeah, well, New York's definitely known, for a lot of different foods, but pizza would be among them. Yeah. I wouldn't think of pizza with Chicago primarily, but...
I guess it's the deep dish thing in particular. But there was a lot of other things that came up. But yeah, hot dogs came up on that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Windy City, right? Chicago.
Yeah.
Windy City. So whatever food you have to hold on to it. Yeah. Which brings us back to Jussie.
The sandwich. Yeah, that's why he was holding on to it. Yeah. He was afraid of the wind. Yeah.
I guess it is. It would become if you're living in Chicago, that would become kind of a second nature kind of thing. Like you hold on to. Mm-hmm. Like a football. Or baby, I guess. Well, I don't know why
they're in the same
baby like this.
They're in the same category, so it doesn't matter.
Well, the sandwich and the baby are equally important. If you're playing football in like a major league, situation, I guess the football would be as important in that moment.
Yeah.
So what we find out outside of Jussie's heroism with the sandwich, what we find out is that he was not attacked by two white men. He was, I guess you could say, attacked or encountered by the Osundero brothers. Mm-hmm. Two brothers who immigrated from Nigeria who I guess had small roles in empire, mm-hmm. and they met him there. Mm-hmm. They look like they're very physically fit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Physically fit individuals. And Jussie does not look like he is particularly fit. Right. I mean, they really stand out next to him,
right?
For that quality, for being in good shape. So he apparently hired them. Later, prosecutors would say a $3,500 check changed hands. Mm-hmm. It was a mysterious check that was supposed to be for physical exercise, like a workout, mm-hmm. help them train, which kind of makes sense, again, given the differences between them.
Sure.
But $3,500, it's a lot. And so anyway, they encountered him, and then he goes and calls the police. He still had the noose around his neck, which the police found very odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is a bit of an odd thing. His response to the officer, like, why are you still surveilling? I just wanted you to see,
right?
To see it. I'm like, if he had said something along the lines of like, well, I don't know what kind of evidence might be on this or DNA or anything. I don't want to touch any other part of it.
Right.
Like, I can understand having it, but saying like, I just wanted you to see it around my neck. That speaks more to like, I want you to see this.
Right. And like, I'm worried you might not believe me.
Yeah. If I took it off and put it on the ground, you wouldn't know that it was around my neck.
Yeah.
Like, I want to prove myself, Yeah. Makes it seem more suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this happened, and, people believed him, I think immediately. Like, and right after, I think people generally, there were public figures, they're like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
We have to stop this. Without actually looking into the details of the case. There's this kind of knee-jerk tendency to say, well, if a person says they were attacked, it must be true. Well, I think a more appropriate response would be, let's investigate. That sounds terrible. Let's investigate. Because that's the only thing that's going to help the victim, is to investigate and get to the bottom of everything. And if, in case they are making it up, which does happen, Sherry Papini case recently broke loose. Remember that case, a woman in California who disappeared and said she was abducted by two Hispanic women? That was all made up. As it turns out, they had somebody who who had firsthand knowledge of what happened and told the police what happened. So it does happen. It's not what we expect, but it's why we're skeptical of any claim without evidence. Mm-hmm. And here there really wasn't anything but his word.
Right.
Like stars, some of the big stars came out in support of Jussie, like right in the immediate aftermath, like Viola Davis, T.I., like rapper T.I., also a good actor in my opinion. They came out with messages of support on like Twitter and in public forums. And that was the immediate aftermath. Like there were a lot of people who were just like, this is a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. We want to show our support for Jussie Smollett.
Well, I get that part. Like I get saying that's terrible, but I think again the next thing should be let's investigate. Let's find out what happened. Instead, we see kind of building kind of a house of cards on top of that foundation. Like Trump's bad. We knew this would happen. Like I'm no fan of Trump, but this had nothing to do with Donald Trump. No. And the idea that two white men would be wearing MAGA hats, these red Make America Great Again hats, in Chicago, that's not the territory for that.
It doesn't add up.
Yeah, I mean, like they're roaming around with these hats. Doesn't make any sense. It was too perfect. Mm-hmm. Well, imperfect, but but it was like it was clear that he was fabricating their existence no matter what happened. And yet people are like, oh yeah, I can't believe Donald Trump would support something like that, or like his policies have caused that. There was no connection whatsoever. It was just
really
just nonsense.
Really opportunistic too. That a man of color, who's not straight, who's gay, obviously, if somebody attacks somebody that has those two, aspects of their life, it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be easy to say, oh, they did it because of his race, they did it because of his sexuality, and so he was really opportunistic about it. Really took advantage of an opportunity that he knew would gain him a lot of sympathy, a lot of attention.
Yeah, and not skepticism.
Right.
Like, he knew that was one of those topics that people weren't going to say, well, I doubt you're telling the truth.
Right.
They're immediately going to say, I believe you.
Mm-hmm. Especially with an election coming up, mm-hmm. and focus on the candidates, especially with Trump. And so there's a lot of things that I'm sure he had in his mind, whether he thought about him consciously or not, but a lot of things that could really have come together in his favor, and did to some extent. I'm glad that it got found out that he was lying about it. But I'm sure in his mind it felt almost too easy. Like, I'm going to throw the race argument out there. I'm going to, because I'm a man of color, I'm going to say that it was white men that attacked me, and because of the political aspect of that, and the homophobic slurs as well. There's a lot of things that he could attach to that, like you said, that are going to make people not question it.
Yeah, it seems odd to me that every button was pressed, mm-hmm. right? So white Trump supporters who wore clothing that made it clear they were Trump supporters, both of them, right? Like, okay, matching hats, like, oh, okay. Focus not only...
We're going to put on ski masks,
but make sure
hide our identity, but make sure you got the MAGA hat on.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure they know about that, and not only have the hat on, make sure you say this is MAGA country, even though we're in Chicago, Illinois. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I can see them arguing with one another. Like, that's a Democrat state, right? Like, there's no Republicans in Chicago. Doesn't matter. You got to say it.
There's always Republicans everywhere. Like, right. there's a small subset of us somewhere in the city. We got to represent. Like, we got to say that this area of Chicago is MAGA country.
And right now, it just happens to be on that street at 2 a.m. with just us two.
Yeah. Right. Well, the three of them, then it would be a two to one, right?
Yeah. There you go.
And of course, there was the racial and the sexual orientation element. They touched on both of those. Now, that's certainly possible, but usually when there's like a hate crime, people just focus on one attribute.
Sure.
And don't announce their political affiliation. It was just an odd, there's too many things going on here. And of course, there was no videographic evidence that it ever happened. Mm-hmm. Even though there was cameras in the area, they checked them, and there was nobody running away. It just seems odd that they get teleported into space. Like, where did they go?
They went to Subway.
They
knew they'd be protected there, just like the sandwiches.
Just want to let you know, before I rob this liquor store, I'm a member of the Tea Party. I'm not, by the way, just a joke. I'm not a member of the Tea Party. I'm actually a registered independent, so I'm political agnostic.
Independently Tea Party, really?
It's an independent party, yes.
Yeah, so this pressed a lot of buttons, and it kind of had this feel that he could have easily made it up, and we wouldn't know the difference happened or didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So it didn't happen. He was charged with filing a false police report. He surrendered. Then he was charged with 16 felony counts, false report of offense. And then on March 26th of, what year are we on here now?
2019.
2019. Mm-hmm. The charges were dropped. Kim Foxx dropped them in the highly unusual deal I talked about. He gave up his bond, and 16 hours of community service, which is 1 hour for each felony count.
And that's a really low number of community service. If you, I don't know. I've heard like people having like really menial little things like theft of $100. Theft under $100, and the judge is like 50 hours of community service, done. Mm-hmm. And like 16 hours of community service, that's It's minuscule.
I want you to think about each felony for 1 hour.
Yeah, that's your
no longer.
Service.
Just 1 hour.
Yeah, let's not take it too far. Just 1 hour for each felony.
And Kim Foxx, of course, was the attorney for the prosecution, and did a lot really to help Jussie. Did a lot to help the defense.
Yeah, she was the state attorney for Cook County. Yeah. You would think her job would be to prosecute people, but sometimes I guess if you go through like a revolving door too quick, you come out and you're like, wait, what side do I defense or wait, what am I?
It's like a little kid's soccer team. They just, wherever the ball's going, that's where they're going to score.
Hockey team.
Or hockey team. In this case, hockey, right?
Yeah, it was a wrong way touchdown, right? So, yeah, doesn't make sense.
I would say part of the state's attorney's job is to minimize the number of, in some aspect, minimize the number of cases that are being prosecuted because it takes resources. Every single one takes resources. And these 16 felony counts, like they weren't ever going to lead to like 20 years in jail. They were relatively small, and I can understand wanting to make a deal to try and get this off my table. This is nothing. You're a celebrity. Let's get it off the table. Let's get it out of here. I can understand wanting to make that deal.
Yeah, but you still have to go through the process. Like you could have done probation before judgment, right?
Yeah.
So, you're going to be convicted of X, Y, and Z unless you stay clean for 6 months and do your community service, your 16 hours. Should be easy to accomplish. And then you come back and we'll officially, the state will ask the judge to dismiss the charges. That's how it works. Not just, your bond, I'm going to take that over here, put that in the, in the Cook County bank account, whatever. And, just tell me you're done those hours. Like, that's such a strange deal.
But prosecutors all over the country, they do have a lot of leeway when it comes to whether or not they proceed with charges. Mm-hmm. And the police can file all the charges they want, but it's up to the prosecutor to say, we're going to move forward in court with these charges. They can say, we're not going to move forward with this case for any number of reasons. Most of the time it's, we don't think we could win this case, so we're not going to move forward. But in this particular case, I don't know I don't know exactly what was going through her head on it, other than, it could have been like, he's a celebrity, and it might look really bad on the office if we're prosecuting someone who just was very public about having been the victim of a hate crime.
Yeah, well, maybe they worried that they were wrong. I don't know. I thought they had a pretty good case. It seems like it was just a very odd deal. Yeah. I'm okay with it going probation for judgment. Yeah. Right? It seems like a case rooted in narcissism. This was somebody who wanted attention. So, you send him to some treatment, or he can work on that, whatever personality stuff he's got going on, and call it a day. But do it the right way. Have it to where there's some accountability in case he violates probation or terms of the deal. This was just a very odd deal. I've never heard of bond being like captured by the state or the county or whatever. Seems so odd.
I was just looking on Kim Foxx's website, and one of the things she ran on in terms of getting elected was reforming the justice system, making it more fair, more safe. So I wonder if that was part of it. Like, let's not complicate this. We've already got $10,000 sitting here. We'll just take that. And maybe they did think 16 or 1 hour for each charge or something. But I wonder if that was part of the thinking. Like, let's streamline this and just move forward. Let's make this less complicated. Let's reform things. I wonder if that played any part in it for her.
It was a really peculiar decision. Yeah. I mean, typically kind of one simplistic way to think about it is, misdemeanors, there's usually the option to do a probation for judgment, maybe a low-level felony. But if it's a, felony kind of above a lower level, maybe you plead that to a misdemeanor. Here, everything just went away with no process. I don't know.
Yeah, it is an area, like, everyone is entitled to due process, but that's not just for the individuals. That's for the state, too. The state deserves to have that due process as well.
Maybe they figured it was victimless. I don't know. I mean,
he was the victim of his own crime. Nobody else was victimized by it. Except that's not true either. as any kind of criminal action like this ends up putting a lot of people in a frame of mind that, oh, every hate crime is fake. These don't actually happen, which is absolutely untrue. Right. Hate crimes happen daily, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who will seize on the, well, Jussie Smollett, lied about his. What about, maybe this person did too.
Yeah. But again, I think this is really, I mean, this gets connected to the larger narrative of Trump and politics, but I think this was really about one man who had some incredible need for attention that really got distorted. And I think it's really an issue that he needs to work out. I didn't see it as one that needed a lot of intervention from the law, but it kind of didn't, right? It was almost too little intervention. And then we see in February.
Well, that's not what the Chicago PD said. They got 130,000.
No, I mean from Kim Fox. Oh. Yeah. And then we see, but obviously the police were upset. But in February of 2020, we see a special prosecutor indicted Jussie on 6 counts of disorderly conduct stemming from 4 separate false reports. He just kept telling the police the same story. And every time you do that, that's a new charge.
Well, that's the thing. He kept changing the story. It wasn't that he was like, okay, this is exactly the same story, and they kept coming back to ask him, like, anytime they did, like, he changed details.
Yeah, he changed little things, and they already kind of had him. I think they just wanted to lock in the inconsistencies. He was tried in November and December of 2021. In December, found guilty of 5 of the 6 charges, and it was 150 days eventually, right? I think in 2022, he was sentenced to 150 days in jail. They specified jail. And he had to pay back some extraordinary sum, right? Over $100,000, I think it was, for wasting the time of the police and the money, the salary and overtime, whatever. And then there was also a fine. He appealed. He was in jail just a few days and was released. Many people think it's a signal that this case could be dismissed. Which we'll get to the jeopardy, but let's take a look. So there have been many people, I'm surprised, who think that he is not guilty, that it was actually an attack. Again, how do we know?
Right.
I mean, the Osendiro brothers kind of confessed to it. Police investigated their home, found ski masks, found the bleach.
The hats. They had purchased the hats, yeah.
Found receipts for all of those things.
And video of them purchasing them.
And there's video of them purchasing. So they were involved in it, absolutely.
Yeah, it just seems strange that they would buy all that stuff that the attackers had. Like, what's an alternate theory of the situation?
And it seems a little odd that they would, just on their own, decide that they were going to assault him in that vein of things.
Yeah, but remember, Jussie said they were white.
Right.
Right, but the brothers are black.
Yes.
So, again, it's like
very, very dark-skinned as well, which, at one point, Jussie had changed his story to the police saying that I don't know whether they were white because I don't want to put that on anybody, but they were definitely very pale. The Osendiro brothers are not pale.
No.
Not in the slightest.
No.
If you find pictures of them, they are not pale, not even around the eyes, which is odd to me to begin with. It's 2:00 in the morning. These guys are wearing ski masks, very small holes around. But somehow at 2:00 in the morning in the dark, you can see that the skin right around their eyes is pale or white.
While focusing on the sandwich.
While focusing on saving the sandwich. And having bleach tossed on you and a noose put around your neck and being beaten.
But he fought them off. Right? He said that they attacked and he essentially beat them up and drove them away. So he wanted to be the victim and the hero wrapped into one bundle.
Well, the hero was the sandwich.
Yeah, we know that. We know that.
But yeah, well, parents often find superhuman strength when protecting a child. I mean, and obviously, Sandwich in that situation, much more important than a child. Superhuman strength to overcome. Because it would have to be superhuman strength if you look at the pictures of the Osendiro brothers next to Jussie Smollett.
He would have needed a lot more physical strength to overcome their physical abilities. Mm-hmm. So
let's put it this way: one of the pictures I've seen of the Osundaira brothers had them in kind of like Spartan-esque gear, and they would have looked fine on a set of the 300 if it had taken place in Africa.
They could have fit right in.
Like they could have fit like just the abs, like abs I will never have ever. They're made of abs. Like it goes all the way up.
Like, one big ab.
Just amazing. They're they're built. They're muscular. They're strong. Not saying Jussie Smollett isn't strong, but he's not that strong.
There's no indication that he's physically strong. I mean, maybe average, but there's no indication nothing like them. Like it's not even close. So Jussie also refused to investigate or refused to cooperate with investigators. He wouldn't turn over his phone, wouldn't give them a saliva sample.
That was one of their first, the police's first things that they really thought was odd. In retrospect, they thought a lot of things were odd, like the details that he came up with. But then they said, like, "Hey, can we have your phone?" He's like, "Nope."
Yeah, seems odd if you want the attackers to get caught. Of course, the noose, they noticed the sandwich in his hand. They said the sandwich was undamaged, and they were amazed by that.
I mean, it is important to protect sandwiches.
Clearly, these police officers did not appreciate the importance of a good sandwich.
Were they Team Sandwich or were they Team Jussie? I mean,
one would think that they would be the same thing at that point, Team Jussie and Team Sandwich, because Jussie protected the sandwich.
At that point, maybe they're looking to prosecute the sandwich. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe the sandwich turned on him.
It rolled over on him.
So surveillance video captured not long before the attack had Jussie's SUV circling the intersection several times where the attack occurred. The brothers were in the vehicle with him. Like he was predicting that the attack would occur in one place. Yeah. Obviously, he paid them. That was kind of interesting. They testified that he arranged a hoax. Pretty clear. Now, Jussie said that the attackers were white. As you mentioned, the story changed there somewhat. It's just, there is plenty of inculpatory evidence. Like looking at this case, it's not the best case. I think there's some doubt, but it's not reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm. Not reasonable enough to have any kind of support, for him saying, "Oh yeah, there's this definitely happened." There's no way that he made this up. There's a very good chance that he made this up.
Well, he had an answer for everything, right? The $3,500 check was from the physical training in preparation for a music video. The driving around, he was smoking marijuana. I always love you can't say I was committing a crime because I was busy committing a crime defense.
I mean, what else are you going to do in a car?
I don't know if that necessarily,
driving.
Whoever was driving and partaking, that definitely was illegal. But I don't know whether it's been decriminalized in Chicago or not. In Delaware, it's been decriminalized. Mm-hmm. If you have recreational amounts of marijuana, you will not be prosecuted in the state of Delaware. It's entirely different if you have a kilo on you, but that's intent to distribute.
I don't know about Chicago, and again, this was in 2019, so a few years ago, when they would have been doing out. I mean, I imagine that the police look the other way, one way or the other.
Right.
Big cities, really anywhere anymore. It's not something they want to pursue.
Yeah.
Jussie did a few really weird things after that whole thing as well. Like one of the things that nobody understood why he said it made a public statement and said, "I'm the gay Tupac," and then didn't explain what he meant before he was done with that. And it's like, what does that mean?
That's it. That's all you're going to say.
That's it. That's all he said. And that actually is one of my favorite parts of this story because it goes back to what the rapper 50 Cent said after the charges went and it came out like that Jussie lied about everything. He tweeted a cover was made of one of Tupac's albums, "All Eyes on Me," but they had changed it to "All Lies on Me," and just because it was a reference to that. I'm the gay Tupac, like that cover. It was just brilliant. A brilliant pun and play on words. Amazing.
Yeah. I'd mentioned this to Mike before we started recording, but in the wake of the Will Smith stuff, the best meme that I saw this week was a picture of Jussie, and it said, "Will hit me too," and just played right into making stuff up and alleging assaults and Yeah, that was my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, his I don't know. I've seen other people come back, but I think his career is over. At least as a serious actor, maybe as a person that can get paid for people and make fun of them. And there are some people like that.
Yeah,
have kind of rebuilt based on that idea. Kind of like, people can joke about them, what they did. They're known for that one thing. I feel like Gary Coleman was kind of like that. His career, he was a security guard, but he made extra money, appearing in different places, and it was just really making fun of his kind of fall from grace after different strokes. It's not great, but it's a way to make a living, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that if he still maintains his innocence,
right,
even though he's convicted, he maintains his innocence and maintains that the attack did happen. I think it's a little bit hard to see how that could be true, given the evidence of what happened. But who knows? Like, to be honest, the Ozendiver brothers could have decided to do that all on their own.
And then said he paid them.
To try and deflect, to try and make a deal so that they wouldn't get in trouble. That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing, to your point, Mike, of him maintaining his innocence. And to your point, Dr. Grande, about him, like his career probably being over, if he would just say, I'm sorry about all that, I made a mistake or whatever, then maybe he might be able to salvage something, But probably everybody he comes into contact with professionally is going to kind of have this on their mind, and then he's going to try to make excuses for it, and, they're wrong, I was right, this actually happened, and I don't know that anybody's really looking for that argument. Like, I want you to act, but if all you're going to do is, try to defend yourself for this, then, I don't think we really have anything here. And it's not a good place to be if you're trying to make a living doing anything.
I do think there's like a 2020 episode or something where he's going to appear on it within the next couple of years, regardless of what happens. Mm-hmm. If everything's overturned on appeal and it's cleared of all charges in that sense, then the 2020 episode will be like, this actually happened to me, and like the world now can see that because all of this didn't. I think if it's confirmed and he fails all the rest of his appeals, then I think he might come out with a contrition kind of statement to stay in the public eye, to stay relevant.
Right. If this is double jeopardy, then this could all be dropped, and I think it should be, not because that's justice, but because it is justice. Like, the prosecutor made a mistake. It's not so much I don't think he should be punished. I think the state needs to be held responsible when they make deals. So he could walk from all this, and I agree. If he walks, then he's innocent forever. Like, not just legally, but he's going to say, I didn't make this up and I was really attacked. Not just innocent, but a victim. Mm-hmm. Right? Not neutral, but over to one side. But if they say no, this wasn't double jeopardy, return to jail, or whatever, it might change his sentence or whatever, but either way, he's guilty. He's a convicted felon. 5-time felon. All at one time, but, all it takes is one. I could see him later on saying, I had some identity issues, like trying to figure out who I am, how I fit in to Hollywood and as an actor. And I had some, some arrogance, sense of entitlement, and my bad.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I think it also depends on how the lawsuit from the Osundairo brothers turns out as well.
Right?
Because they're saying that they're still getting accused of carrying out a racist and homophobic attack, even though their claim is it was neither of those things because it was kind of a publicity stunt. Like they were paid to do this. There was no actual motivation behind it that was racist or homophobic, but they're still being accused of that. So they're saying it's defamation.
I can't, technically I see their point, but what a weak case, right? I mean, civil trials are totally different, but I could see somebody saying, well, let me get this straight. You want to be the victims now. You took money to perpetrate a hoax, but you want Jussie to pay you money for defamation. It just doesn't feel like a...
It seems weird, but their reputations have been damaged by it. Like they took a job to do a thing, and Jussie wasn't permanently injured by it, wasn't damaged by it, consented to whatever physical... So that's their claim, is that he consented to whatever physical things happened, which makes it not an assault.
Right.
In the first place, it means no crime happened on their part.
Mm-hmm. The crime was what he did with it.
The crime is what he did with it, and like that's where they're saying that we did what we were paid to do. We did a job that we were paid to do, but now our reputations have taken a hit because of the claims that he's making.
Yeah, but they knew that wasn't street theater, right? They knew that what he was going to do was take that and commit a crime. Mm-hmm. If they had not testified, if they had not cooperated, I could imagine there would have been some trouble there for them. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a gray area, I suppose, because they didn't make a false report or anything, right. But they did help somebody. Is it like accessory before the fact? I don't know. Like, I don't know if you can even have an accessory charge for something like that, but it just seems like there would be something there. It's odd. It's odd that they would be looking for money.
Right.
You think they'd be lucky that their story was believed.
Yeah.
What they're saying, well, I guess what they're really saying is that there are people out there who don't believe their story. Mm-hmm. And people who do believe their story are just like, okay, well, they didn't, like, it's a crappy thing to do, but okay, Jussie Smollett's the real criminal in this case. They're paid to do a job. They did the job,
right?
But they're getting backlash because there are people who don't believe their story. Because there are people who still are on Jussie Smollett's side, who like believe his side of things.
Right. The brothers are lying. They're trying to cover up their bad acts or whatever. And Jussie's really the victim, type of thing.
Regardless of whether, of the strict legality of what the deal that was made versus anything else, a jury of 12 individuals listened to the evidence in this case and found that he did it, that he perpetrated this as a hoax. It
didn't even really sound close.
Yeah.
They were pretty confident. Yeah.
So maybe the moral of the story is don't assault other people? Or if somebody offers to pay you, still don't assault other people?
Yeah. Yeah, that really does seem like they were doing something wrong. Like, I don't know how they can... It's just, like, at some point you gotta be like, wait, you want me to do what? No. You want me to go, no, I'm not gonna do that.
This doesn't seem like to be any good outcome. No. Either way, yeah.
That comes back to a little bit to the BDSM kind of stuff. Like is consensual violence against a person protected? Like, if a person says, please hit me, and you hit them, is that assault? And not in the like, oh yeah, please hit me. Like,
right. But
like that's a joking dare. I dare you to do that.
Boxing.
But yeah,
right. You could. There's a legal. You can kill somebody in a boxing ring.
Yeah.
And not be. You'd be totally immune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is incredible, but. Yeah, I mean,
has happened rarely, but has happened.
Has happened. And lots of permanent damage,
Oh, yeah.
Worse than many physical attacks of other types. So yeah, there is a way. There's certainly a gray area. I mean, they could say, "Look, we're actors. He hired us for a job. A little weird with the hats, but you know,
we don't ask what role we're playing. We just took the role.
Yeah, and
follow
when
the
they
directions
were
for costumes, and yeah,
and when they were questioned, they told the police the truth. And, okay. You know, even if you gave that to them, I don't see the defamation. I feel like they did that to themselves when they accepted. Like, I don't know.
It's just one of those, like, because of the conviction, the defamation suit might actually have some legs.
It could
to stand on, and if the defamation suit goes through and this thing is upheld, there's nothing Jussie can do really to proclaim his innocence and be really believed by anyone.
Yeah. I think
there are going to be people, of course.
There's two elements though. Like one, you know, is there a 51% chance that they were defamed, right? And you know, like preponderance of the evidence, like did Jussie do this? And then the second part, which I think is probably more significant, because it seems pretty clear, he is defaming them. But does it matter? Does the defamation do damage? And that's where I kind of get stuck, because they agreed to these terms, knowing that Jussie was going to do bad things with the. I don't know.
There's also the fact that he continues to say that they're lying about him. So if they were actually paid to do this job, and he's saying, I didn't pay them to do the job, and they're liars, then, you know, if they might not be able to get work, because people will be like, well, are you, like, I don't know if you're going to assault me or not.
Yeah.
You know,
the ongoing effects of that.
Yeah. Like that could be where the defamation becomes damaging to them.
Yeah, they might be able to make a case, but I'd be surprised if a jury's going to be real. Like, they're not going to be crying in the jury box.
No,
right?
I doubt it.
So,
I mean, they might be very happy that these two didn't harm the sandwich. In some way, that might spark a few tears.
yeah. You ever see John Grissom's The Rainmaker with Matt Damon? It's not going to be that jury.
No.
Right? Spoiler alert for Rainmaker, but the jury sided with Matt Damon's client.
Maybe
who was dead, actually, technically, I guess.
Maybe the brothers should hire Jussie to teach him how to get sympathy from people, so that when they go in front of the jury, they know how to get sympathy from him. Well, Jussie's pretty good at that.
I think the way that they would get that sympathy would be staging attacks against themselves. And I don't think
that could come full circle.
That could make it a loop that becomes a problem.
They assault someone else, that person assaults them, and it just, nobody knows what to believe anymore, and maybe that's how they get out of it.
Yeah, this is one of these cases that it'd be nice if there was video to clear it up.
I mean, there's after the fact video, but the only video footage they have that is, you know, near there is of the Olsen-Dyrer brothers on camera after.
Right, they were seen.
They were seen,
but not
close by.
Not the mysterious white attackers, but they were seen. Yeah.
What I think is interesting is that the day that the Olsen-Dyrers were identified as persons of interest, the Chicago PD tweeted that they had identified persons of interest in the alleged attack on an Empire cast member. But the interesting thing is that they put a hashtag in for hashtag Chicago police. They misspelled Chicago in their own tweet from the Chicago Police Department.
They're trying to send a specific message there?
I think it's all that overtime. They were tired.
Yeah, they were super tired from that overtime. Oof.
And still don't have anybody to pay for it. So.
Right. But yeah, I just saw that on the thing. I was like, I've got to comment on that. Like, Chicago police. February 14th, Valentine's Day. That was when that tweet was. Valentine's Day 2019.
Somebody was in a
Chicago.
rush. In a rush to go out on some Valentine's date.
It's like, I don't want to think that was... Like, it's got to be a typo, because I don't want to think somebody was actually, you know, making a racist comment about Chicago or something like that. Like, that would be terrible. But yeah, typo.
It was a typo, probably. Yeah.
Chicago police.
But really, how many conspiracies can come out of that? I'm looking forward to them.
I'm just saying, a lot could come out of that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to all of them.
This is a case they probably just wish would go away, right? At every level.
I think that's why Kim Foxx wanted to get out of here.
Now we can understand her motivation a little better.
Get it out of here.
Yeah. So how will this case, end up? Who knows? Either Jussie will go back to jail for the remaining, whatever's left, 150 days, or some portion of that, or not at all. The case will be dismissed. Who knows? But I think that's important with the legal side, but also like his career. I mean, he's a young guy. He's going to be around for a long time. I'm sure he's going to resurface many, many, many times.
He'll make it a point that he does.
Even though Empire is now over, like he was fired. Like he was like, he will not be returning to Empire.
You know what I see as a possibility is these Hollywood types. They have a lot of money, and they're always looking for damaged, like a damaged performer, like a reputationally damaged, to feature in a project. And I could see one of them kind of privately funding, like a behind the scenes, what really happened, hear it right from his mouth, even though we have many times heard it from his mouth. 10 years from now, when maybe the anger and the whole Trump thing is no longer an issue, like he'll be out of politics by then.
Right.
I can only hope.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people talking about 2024, and
there's also people talking about indictment. Right, that's going on too, and that would, I think, do it. I think that would do it. Although you can run indicted.
Yeah, indicted is not convicted.
Yeah,
you can run on being indicted. I mean, he made history as the only president to be impeached twice. He was not convicted, but he was impeached twice.
Somehow he might. I mean, with his history, he might gain more followers if he had some kind of an indictment. Somehow he would manage to gain more followers that way. It's just, I don't know how it happens.
If he got indicted and was convicted before he could run for president again, I don't care how many followers he has.
But if he was convicted, sure. But just indicted, somehow he would gain more followers.
They have to move fast, right? Yeah. I think it's going to, I think if he runs, it's going to spell a Democrat victory. I don't think he has enough support like he used to. He used to have a lot of Republican support. Now I think a lot of Republicans are like, I don't know. Couldn't we do better? To be fair, Democrats should be asking themselves the same question. But I think maybe that's one of the problems is, we've talked about the two-party system. You get this one candidate that represents all these people. And, even within the party, a lot of people don't like their chosen candidate. Yeah. But you feel like you have to stand by them. I think that's what happened with Trump. It's like, well, he's the one, so we'll stand by him. But he was awful.
The problem is, it kind of for many people, it went from he's the one to he's the one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He became the chosen one.
The QAnon
for many people.
Yeah. What was the QAnon thing? It was there was two events that they believe are going to happen.
First wave, was there first wave or big wave or something? I thought there was something to do with a wave.
Yeah, there's two terms they used that I wish I could remember them, but they're both like big deals.
Right.
Where Trump like takes all the evil people and puts them in Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
And all this stuff. It's beyond just like, oh, he was a good president. No, he's like taking all these people and put them in prison. Like what? Like what president does that?
The American savior, something.
Yeah. Almost there's for some almost a messiah.
Yeah.
Thing.
It was a religious.
Him, yeah.
I think QAnon, you could argue, is a religious belief system because Trump was a deity to them, not just like a good president or a bad president. Yeah. He had powers that didn't have anything to do with being president in their minds.
Right.
That was strange.
It's like the president is kind of limited in what they can actually do, but people are like, Trump will do this. And then Trump was like, I can do that? Okay. Because he didn't know either. He wasn't a politician. He didn't go to law school for political science or anything like that. Like he had no idea.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the next few years. But
one of the things that I think it was probably after the last court hearing, going back to Jussie, I think it was probably after the last court hearing. One of the last comments he made was he made a comment something like, I'm not going to, or I'm not, I don't want to harm myself. You know,
right.
There's different words.
He yelled it. He yelled it as he was being escorted by the whatever they are, the guards, out of the courtroom.
I don't want to harm myself. And it seemed like just another attempt at making it about him. Like, I'm still the victim here. Somebody's going to go after me because they don't like me because of X, Y, and Z or whatever. You know, just, I got to have the final word. I got to have the attention on me, and I have to be the victim still. Maintain my innocence, and I'm still the victim.
Yeah. I think he was trying to really say is that he's so much a victim that they were going to murder him in prison. So understand that if he's dead, they murdered him, right? It wasn't anything else that killed him.
Right.
There was no remorse, nothing like that at that hearing, at his sentencing.
Right.
Again, he's maintaining his innocence, that he did not commit this crime. That he didn't fake.
He had an opportunity to adjust the judge. Like the judge, say your piece, nothing, and then when it was done, he's yelling on the way out, just to grab attention. It was disingenuous.
I can tell that there are a couple of others who really want attention too, and that Bella and Maximus upstairs, like they're really trying to be part of this episode. They have a lot to say, apparently, on the subject of Jussie Smollett. I think they're more interested in the sandwich.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah.
Do we have any more details on the sandwich? What kind of sandwich was it? Like, what kind of cheese was on it?
Is that going to stay in evidence indefinitely? Did somebody eat it afterwards just so it didn't go bad?
I don't know. How long can you freeze a sandwich before it goes bad?
That's a fair question.
I think that would depend on some of the ingredients.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Was there mayonnaise or oil on it? Ketchup?
These are the real questions.
Or mustard.
You know, right? An attention-seeking person who forged this hoax, whatever. But the sandwich—that's the real focus.
Yeah. Or you know what? I think that he missed an opportunity. If he'd gotten a vegan sandwich and then had it damaged, he could have added that in as a part of the hate crime. Could have been like against race, against sexual orientation, preference, however, and against being vegan. He could have thrown the vegan thing in there too. And,
That's fair.
But he missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
But he did protect the sandwich, so
right. You got to give him that.
You got to give him that.
When he tries to make his comeback, which inevitably will occur, he should lead with the sandwich.
He should lead with the sandwich. Yes.
All right. So, any final thoughts about Jussie Smollett?
I mean, the thought comes to mind about the attention-seeking behavior and kind of that victim mentality and narcissism and all those kind of things. Of course, very difficult type people to deal with. Not an uncommon trait necessarily for people who are in the limelight, whether it be actors, musicians, both of which he was, both of which he is. Well, yeah. So
I feel like we need air quotes around musician. I'm not sure. I didn't listen to music, but it just seems like
I don't know that he was really known for it. I think I read that some of his music was included in Empire. I don't know if it was regularly or just a one-off thing, but
who knows? Maybe he was good at it.
I don't know. But so either way, not an uncommon trait, to be kind of attention-seeking and things like that. But to take it to this level and maintain a hoax, maintain a false story, maintain your innocence, and do so up until the very last moment, saying, I'm still the victim, still the victim. People who display these kind of characteristics and personality traits are very difficult to deal with. And there's not a lot of easy ways to deal with someone who's like that. There's no changing their mind. Of course, there's no reasoning with them that, you're being unreasonable right now, or maybe you should just admit that you were wrong. None of that we know. None of that really does anything. But at this point, being so public, even somebody trying to slowly initiate some kind of change or remorse or anything in this situation probably won't make much of a difference either.
I don't think
really not a lot you can do here.
I don't think he's ready for that. I think the same characteristics, the sense of entitlement, the shame that led to him doing that, prevent him from confessing.
Right.
So like, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if we can ask that of him.
Yeah.
Right. To understand why he did it means we have to understand why he's never going to, or not at least tell the truth soon. I think eventually he could come around.
Yeah.
But in the immediate, I don't see any reason why he would tell the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Any thoughts, Mike?
As my final thoughts kind of come back to that sense of why this is such an outrageous thing. Like if he faked the attack, and the evidence definitely suggests that he did, then it was just and the motive that the prosecutors and police came up with was he was trying to garner sympathy so that he could leverage getting more money on Empire. And that could have potentially worked, especially with the initial public cries of support that came up, and then we saw a second wave of that after Kim Foxx dismissed the charges, decided not to charge. There were he was suspended from Empire during the investigation, and as soon as the charges were dropped, he was right back on the show. And like the creators said, we stand with him. Fox was like, we stand, behind Jussie Smollett, and like that was that was a second wave that kind of lifted that up. But they're all, if this was a faked attack to get money, then he's damaged so many other people in the homosexual community and in the black community by claiming these to be hate crimes when they were staged. And I think that is the major damage in this case, is how serious that is. Because, if nothing else, police might be less willing to investigate the next hate crime. Because, we don't want this to be another Jussie Smollett, at least in Chicago. We don't want this to be another Jussie Smollett situation where this is a faked attack and we waste $130,000 in overtime. And that's a big issue, and he's the cause of it. If he did this, if he didn't, and it was the Osendira brothers who decided to do this, then the issue falls upon them, as they faked this attack. I don't know why they would have. Yeah,
it doesn't seem like they would have much motive, any motive.
Other than maybe, and I can think of a motive. They wanted to be his bodyguards. Hey, we can get in as bodyguards. If he's attacked, he might feel that he needs bodyguards, so we can be those bodyguards. And we can get paid by him to do that. Potential. I don't think that it really holds up as well as the fake me out. But it has some potential. If they did that for that reason, then they're quote the a-holes, I guess.
It would be a very unusual way, but yeah, I see your point. There's a small window where who knows, right? They could have conspired and framed him for the hoax after not getting the result they wanted. The police knock on their door and all that. It's possible.
But he ultimately showed his colors as the one thing that his character from Mighty Ducks always hated, and that was as a cake eater. He was trying to be rich. He was trying to be a cake eater, and that was it. Like, that's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I think at the core of it, the cases like this, it's like a really kind of powerful narcissism, multiple characteristics of narcissism, where the person's like, I'm so great, but people aren't responding like I'm great. Like I have this average salary for being an actor. Why aren't they giving me more money? They don't understand my greatness. They're foolish and uneducated because they don't understand how amazing I am. They're forcing me to make this hoax. How terrible they are. They're pushing me to do this hoax. They're such bad people that I'm now committing this hoax.
And that's why I'm the victim.
Yeah. I mean, Jussie's the victim no matter how you look at it.
Right.
I think you could even argue that in his mind, he might think, okay, yes, I really did it, but I'm a victim because they made me do it. They should have recognized how great I am. I was a really good actor. and musician. Why aren't people paying attention to me?
And there is also the aspect of sometimes people stick to a story so much they do convince themselves that their story is true.
Or a self-delusion.
Like they self-delude themselves, and if that's the case, he'll never say that he did it, not ever. Mm-mm. But I'm not sure that it's gotten to that point yet.
It was a good point, though, Mike. He hurts a lot of communities this way by making it potentially more difficult to report such things or to feel like you're going to be believed, which we know has always been a huge problem with minority communities, with assaults against minority people in minority communities, against women, things like that, because of false reporting and because of issues surrounding that. It's it hurts so much more than just an immediate group of people.
Well, imagine seeing a victim. I think this is what happens in the mind of somebody with this type of vulnerable narcissism. Imagine like watching TV, looking at the internet, whatever, and seeing these people victimized, like what's going on in Ukraine, innocent people being killed, or anywhere in the world. It happens every day, right? And looking at them, being like, we might look at them and say, that's terrible. What could we do? What policies need to change to prevent this in the future? Somebody like Jussie looks at them and says, they're getting all the attention. I'm much, much more of a victim than they are. Like, they're not even talented. I'm talented. Like, it's almost like a blank stare thing. Like, there's no empathy. He can't be like, oh, what's happening to them is terrible, and what's happening to me is terrible. No, it's all about Jussie.
Oh, those poor people in Ukraine think they have it bad. They've never been turned over for a role. Like, they haven't been turned down for a promotion. That's terrible.
Maybe the kind of guy that would say, well, then just leave. Like, it's not that bad what you're going through. I can't leave my situation. You guys can leave your country, or something, totally insensitive like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in error.
It's limitless. So like narcissism can be limitless as far as like, there can be so little empathy that it's always about that person at every single instance. And that's what really strikes me with Jussie. There's never a time where he seems to be like, okay, I'll give you that. Mm-hmm. Like with the prosecution, with the police, like, okay, I get that looks suspicious. Or I understand what you're saying. Or yeah, overtime's terrible. And if I made you do that, that's awful. He's always the victim, absolutely. And there is no victim as good, as superior as Jussie Smollett. No. All right. We'll see what happens. We'll update this case by another video. Yeah. When I don't think it's going to be a dramatic ending. It's just going to be one that we mentioned. Jail, no jail. Conviction, no conviction. Yeah. Any questions today?
Yeah, I got a few. Mike, before we do that, did you want to give some ideas?
Yes, we have first we have our new addition, which is a dumpster fire, in honor of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. He was fighting a dumpster fire, and that entire case was a dumpster fire.
I want to hold that one up and.
Yeah. This is our dumpster fire.
Very intricate, lots of detail there, and the color. I'm just noticing the colors, and like how detailed the colors are, especially on the fire. Like so many different shades there, which is pretty awesome.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we might post in the future a video of close-ups of all of our tchotchkes here, because I have a nice little turntable that'll be able to get a 360 view. And I'll work on doing a video for everything, explain what each one is, how they are. I also am planning on doing a behind-the-scenes part episode where I take you into the lab at my house, where I do my 3D printing and all the painting and things like that. And I'll talk about that. But for Jussie, let's see. I got to go with the duck hockey mask.
Yeah.
I've got to. It's classic. Can't not. Or sandwich.
Sandwich, yeah.
Sandwich.
Yeah.
Although it could be in like what kind of sandwich? Mm-hmm. What kind of? Am I going to go with a classic hoagie? Which is interesting. If you know Wawa anywhere from Pennsylvania, Delaware, or Florida.
Yeah,
they're everywhere. We were stopped in one in Virginia, right? Virginia, yeah.
North Carolina is getting one soon. I have family who are from Philadelphia, have lived in North Carolina for a while, freaking out because they were finally getting a Wawa nearby. They're so happy.
As they should be.
But the longest sub they have at Wawa is the classic. So I mean, I could do a classic hoagie, or just a regular sandwich, just 2 pieces of bread stuff. Or
well, it was still wrapped, so you could really do anything, and maybe it's still wrapped, and leave the specifics of the sandwich a mystery.
Kind of that little tag on it where you check off the things.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what we say is in here, but who knows what's really in here?
Who knows what's really in here?
It's still a mystery.
So yeah, we could do the sub, or I think the Mighty Ducks hockey mask could also be interesting.
All right, very good.
Very good. Quite a few questions. The one that I saw from our question part video, I just saw it. Question is, what excites you guys? And I think the root of this question is, we do these videos and like, it's not like we're jumping up and down, doing a whole lot of theatrical stuff. Just us talking. We're laughing a lot and everything too, but I guess there's not a whole lot that the viewers see that excites us, on this, or I don't know. That's where I think this really comes from. But any thoughts?
Geeky, nerdy stuff. I'm always excited by geeky stuff. My fiance told me today on a text message that there's a famous author for comic books for DC Comics is a client at her business, and I was just like, really? I was like super excited about that because like he's written for some of my favorite comics when I was reading those particular comics, and I was like, wow, that's really amazing. That's awesome. Yeah.
Is the question like, can I meet him? Is that kind of the first thing?
There was that question was up there. She's like, well, if I ever see him, I'll ask for an autograph for you if he'll do that. I'm like that'd be great, but I actually really just want to sit down and talk to him. Be like, so how did you get started in the comic book writing business? Because I've wanted to do that for a while, but I can't find my Jack Kirby. I can't find somebody who can draw. I can't draw for anything. I can work with 3D model stuff, but that's point and click with a mouse. I can't draw comic book style stuff, but I got ideas. Creative person. I'd love to be a comic book writer. So I'd like to ask him, how did you do it?
I imagine that's going to be one of your future jobs for the introduction for one of these episodes then.
I hope so. If I get a chance. I'm a comic book writer. That'd be great.
Any ideas, Dr. Grande?
Exciting is an interesting word. I don't know. I feel like it's been replaced by inspired. Everybody says inspires, but exciting is a different emotion.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like a little bit broken from logic. I don't know. I think new movies coming out. Looking forward to Obi-Wan coming out.
Oh, that's
series, but high hopes for that. Like cars is exciting. Look at the different cars coming out. I rarely buy them. Right? You can't buy everything that you see, but they're interesting.
I wish.
Right? I wish I could buy them all. When really interesting cases come forward, I think it's exciting. Like when the Will Smith slap thing. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is definitely going to be a video."
The internet was definitely excited about that. Yeah.
Oh,
cruising. Yeah, like cruising.
On cruise ships.
On a cruise
ship.
Okay.
Yeah, on a cruise ship. Yeah.
Because I like cruising in my Challenger, like just down the road. But
yeah,
it's a different type of cruising.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, I always liked nautical stuff, but I don't have, obviously, my own boat or anything, or never have any type of boat, even a small boat. But cruising is a decent substitute. Leave the piloting to somebody else and just enjoy the. Yeah, it was definitely exciting. Went on a cruise recently to Bahamas. But exciting's tricky. Like that word, I feel like, so many times in counseling, that word ends up in a bad place. It's like maybe just, working, a lot of people are manic and you just hear the word exciting and it's like, all right, well, let's just.
Well, what happened next?
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Bring it down a little bit. Bring it down a little bit, because what trouble did you get into after you?
Let's dial it down to enthusiastic. Let's
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Exciting could be a bad thing or a good thing, depending on, what you're doing with your life. Yeah. Things that get me excited, buying something new sometimes, depending on what it is, like a new tool, for example, that's exciting. Again, depending on what it is,
absolutely.
A new screwdriver doesn't necessarily make one excited, but
it depends what kind of screwdriver it is.
That's fair. If you're buying like a, high dollar, whatever, but like a new power tool, that's exciting. That's very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Musicians, so buying new equipment or something related to that is exciting. Seeing my kids when they come home from school, that's exciting to me. Young kids, so it's like they're excited to be home and playing with toys and stuff, so that's exciting. Playing music, I guess, is exciting to some extent too. So yeah, I wouldn't call myself excitable though. Like I don't really get excited a lot about stuff. I don't know how you guys feel about that for yourselves.
Yeah. I feel like exciting is for people who are pretty far on extroversion, pretty like the sensation seeking, the talkativeness, the outgoingness. Those people get excited. Yeah. Introverted people and kind of mid-range, not so much excited, enthusiastic. Yeah. Yeah.
I tend to get impulsively excited. Like if I have an impulse that drives me to want something and I get fixated on it, like I'll get excited to do it. Like just today, I bought a new car for my fiance. Like she needed a car. She gave up her car in 2020 because she was working from home and wasn't driving anywhere. We could give up that payment. We didn't have to worry about it. But she's back to working in an office now. She needed a car. I've been driving her to work, but it's not the ideal situation.
Right.
So we need to get her a car. So we started looking, and I saw one that was perfect. She liked the way it looked in pictures and was like, I've got to get this car. Found one at a local dealership, and I was just like dialed in on it. All day, I was just like, this is the thing I'm thinking about. This has got me excited, so I'm going to get this car. I bought the car today, and she's really excited to learn how to drive it. She knows how to drive, but not stick shift. And it's a manual transmission car.
What kind of car is it?
It's a Nissan Juke.
Oh, okay. Like an SUV.
Yeah. Well, it's a hatchback, but it's actually the Nismo version. So it's the Nissan Motorsport. Okay. Like it's the higher end tier.
Yep.
Got it for a steal because it's manual transmission.
Sadly, many people cannot drive them.
Yeah. They're my favorite things to drive. The only reason I moved over to automatics was because some of the cars that I bought didn't come in a manual transmission. Like you can't buy a Jeep Cherokee with a manual transmission. They only have the 7-speed automatic. Grand Cherokee too. I had one of those.
Yeah.
But my Challenger, I was looking for a manual transmission, but I had to settle for one with an automatic because I had to, take what I could get at that point.
Yeah.
Wasn't making a whole lot of money at that point. I had a ceiling for what I was willing to spend per month.
Yeah. It's an upcharge anymore to get a manual transmission, right? Yeah.
Especially in the Challenger, you have to go up to the RS at least. And that's a sport package. You have to get the 8-cylinder engine in order to get the manual transmission in that car.
I see a day where there won't be any more manuals because electric is taken over, and there's no need to have, there's no way to have a manual or any type of transmission when you
any kind of gear shifting at all. Yeah.
And they're, for better or for worse, I think that's the way we're headed. But yeah, the manuals are great. I've had many manual transmission cars.
I love them. But I got to teach her how to drive this weekend in a manual transmission, and it's gonna be fun. But it's a peppy little car. I like it.
Yeah, 4-cylinder, not too heavy.
Yeah. 188 horsepower. In a pretty light car. With that manual transmission, just take off.
Doesn't it have the headlights positioned? Like that's one that had the headlight position is different, like just a little different looking. Yeah.
It almost feels like driving a dune buggy, old style dune buggy. And it's just the way it's shaped from the inside looking out. I love it. Yeah, it's really nice.
That's great.
And so I got really excited about that. That was something that excited me. But that kind of is an impulsive, I've got to focus on this. That's the ADHD talking.
I used to have a 370Z Nismo 6-speed. And I like the Nismo. It's definitely much sharper in any of the cars. So Juke, Nismo, GTR, Nismo, whatever it is. Nismo is like the sport. One complaint I had about the Nismo Z was the suspension was very dialed up. So it was like rattle your teeth out. You know, you could feel your kidneys. It was a little much for driving around town.
I think there's definitely a difference in the suspension between that and my Challenger. The Challenger's got a nice wider wheelbase, lower to the ground, stiffer suspension, so it's just like cruise over everything. The Juke is just kind of like you feel all the bumps.
A lighter car like that too.
Yeah.
Like it's
it just bounces on everything. My fiance commented on that when we were driving one of the roads that we drive to her work every day, and the Challenger just cruised through. And when we were driving after I picked her up, she's just like, "Wow, this road's kind of bumpy."
This road feels different.
It feels different. It's gonna.
All right, so I got two more questions. Where was the other one here? Okay, so I thought this was a good one. What words should people use instead of clinical diagnoses when they mean something different? Examples being saying you're depressed because your dog died or your stocks fell. Saying that a crooked line messes with your OCD. How can we use language that is more precise and is not insensitive to these real debilitating issues?
Yeah, I think it's about naming the symptom, right? I think people go to the overarching category instead of actually saying how they feel.
Yeah,
you know, like sad, right, despondent, or whatever. They'll say, "Oh, I'm depressed," but there's other words that you can use. You know, that are more like detail.
Like I personally think that you could use you preface certain things with "I feel." Like it's valid to say "I feel depressed." Like not just sad, but like all of my emotions kind of feel depressed. Like everything's being pushed down. It's not just that I feel a little bit sad. I'm not, helping feel much of anything. But it might not be clinical depression. Like just today, I feel depressed. But it's not I am depressed, because I am is a self-identifier. It's bringing it on as a thing that could be a clinical diagnosis. I could feel depressed and not be depressed. With the OCD thing, I want to cut that out completely. It's like my particularness, maybe like that, or it sets my teeth on edge to see these things out of line like this. I'm just like,
I just really appreciate when these things are in order, or if my room's clean, or my hands feel clean, or whatever.
I think it's really more anxiety, right? Like what they're saying is they get anxious when they can't keep things in order, which makes sense. But to invoke a serious disorder like OCD, especially OCD, which is so devastating to so many people, just seems like a very trivial way to use it. I agree. I think I would rather hear I'm depressed, even though that's invoking MDD potentially, or PDD, than the OCD. It's just, it's way like, people can be depressed and not have depression, but being orderly has nothing to do with OCD. It's a completely different.
Right.
You know, it's conscientiousness. It's a high conscientiousness. OCD is more, ritualistic. Like these intrusive thoughts, that almost commanding people, pushing people. They're just completely wrong. It's not even close. So that one should go. The OCD thing.
I think that just should go, because OCD is not it's not about being clean. It's not about being. It's not about cleanliness. Some people do have a focus on that, and in fact, many people do. But it's not about that. It is about the anxiety that comes up from just about anything that is triggered.
Yeah, it's catastrophe anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. The fear response that's evoked with that.
Yeah, dying, being bankrupt, starving, like losing your relationships. Like it's always a huge catastrophe with OCD. But people who just want to be organized, they know that the world's not going to implode if they don't line everything up.
And even if they don't, it doesn't mean they have a disorder.
A person who looks at the counter in the office, like community space, that sees a couple of things of like grains of coffee on the counter, going like, I gotta clean that up. My OCD is going off, and then you just gotta throw it off. Like, one, if they actually have OCD, that is kind of getting rid of some of the anxiety. But most of the time, it's just I want this counter to be clean. I don't want ants. So I've got reasons that I don't want this stuff. So let's keep this clean, please.
Yeah, and OCD doesn't react to stimuli. OCD is internal. It's not the coffee grounds. It's the OCD that drives everything. It doesn't matter what the stimuli are. So it's, yeah, they misunderstand the order of how that works. You come in with the OCD. The OCD infects the environment. Yeah. It distorts the environment, so everything comes in as dangerous. It doesn't react. It doesn't actually care what the environment is.
And the anxiety's going up, and then I have to clean.
Right.
Because if I don't clean, the anxiety's going to keep going up.
The obsession kicks in.
Yeah.
The one I heard today, not that people necessarily say, I have bipolar disorder, but they might say, if somebody is really happy one moment and then really sad the next moment, that, I think he's just bipolar. I think he's being bipolar, or whatever you want to call it, which of course does a disservice to those who genuinely deal with manic episodes and depressive episodes, and has nothing to do with happy or sad, or it could, but that's not the defining part about the disorder. And it's just describing that this person maybe has mood swings, or maybe deals with a lot of things throughout the day and doesn't know how to handle them, or has a problem with emotional regulation or something like that. But bipolar certainly wouldn't be a good way to describe that.
Right. I think a lot of people just don't understand what bipolar is. Right. They hear bipolar and think of these massive, wild mood swings just randomly happening. And rapid cycling can happen, but is not usually, that like that. And I've had clients who have come in and said, I think I might be bipolar. It's like, okay, well, what makes you think that? It's like, well, I'll be happy one minute, and then the next minute I'll be like really down. And then the minute after that, I'm like, super anxious about things and going. And I talk to them a little bit more. And sometimes it turns out that it's trauma, which has aspects of both depression type symptoms and anxiety type symptoms, or ADHD, which, very much incorporates cyclical thinking, perseverations that can lead to anxiety reactions, and also like self-image issues that can lead to depressive thoughts. And it's like, there's your problem. Like, the problem isn't, that you're bipolar. You just don't understand really what bipolar is. It's because of this other issue, this underlying thing. And we can work with that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've heard that too. A lot of people in general are just like, oh, this is bipolar. What? Really? When was the last manic episode?
Yeah. Yeah. And they confuse it with borderline. Bipolar is a particularly cruel disease. I talked about that before in clinical practice. It's typically a worse diagnosis than MDD. Mm-hmm. It's rare compared to MDD, but it's still too common. And it has a worse prognosis much of the time. Yeah. So it's not to be taken lightly. Right. Somebody has bipolar, they need treatment. Mm-hmm. So again, to kind of invoke bipolar because your mood is up and down one day, that's not how it works. Typically, it's pretty long episodes. 10 days, 2 weeks, maybe 6 weeks off, then coming back. Like, it's not typically within a few minutes. Mm-hmm. It's not how that works. There are mixed episodes, and it can get confusing because you can also have other disorders on top of bipolar.
Sure.
It can be merged with schizophrenia. You have schizoaffective. So, it's complex. But, yeah, to invoke that, I think, is not the best way to respect people with mental illness.
Right.
There is an aspect of bipolar that I think is actually overdiagnosed, and that's in the drug and alcohol community. I really do think that bipolar is heavily overdiagnosed because a lot of the clients that I've had, and I've talked to a lot of other clinicians who work in inpatient settings, the typical patient that comes in and says that they have bipolar, you ask them about manic episode and they've never really had one. Mm-hmm. The depression, quite serious, certainly, but sometimes not. But I think that where that comes from is from the intake process in all of these places, because they have people who might have a bachelor's degree in psychology, doing the intake, and some of the questions that they're asking are geared towards bipolar to find out if someone has bipolar. And they'll ask all these questions about the symptomology and be like, okay, well, you got bipolar. Yeah.
As if it means nothing, right? As if it's just like, you should just go home and be fine with that.
But the question they never asked was, when you were experiencing these manic type symptoms, were you high on methamphetamines at the time?
Yeah, or
I've
cocaine.
actually asked that question to somebody who came in with a bipolar disorder, and I was like, okay, well, you experienced this. He's like, yeah. I'm like, were you taking stimulants at the time? He's like, yeah. Like, I just went on a week bender with methamphetamines, and that's part of the diagnostic criteria, is that it can't be the result of drugs, of a drug interaction. So that's where I think that there's a huge over-diagnosis of bipolar disorder in that community, which skews some of the statistics.
You could argue that you should never diagnose bipolar until the whole substance mess is cleaned up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just too close, the symptoms. Right. You can get depressed on drugs too, heroin. So, yeah, I think bipolar is a devastating diagnosis. And the way it's tossed about, some of these clinics I've seen, is just, it's like they're tossing around a live hand grenade. It's like you go in the lunchroom and they're like, "Hey, pull the pin out. Oh yeah, we're having fun." Like, you can't play with that.
Who's got bipolar right now?
Yeah,
who's got it?
They're just telling people, "Oh, you got bipolar." If they go look it up and see what happens to people with bipolar, they would be frightened, because it's a devastating disorder. Now, it can respond to treatment, and there's a lot of hope, but it should be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I think the mental health community, in some respects, has given up on professionalism in some areas. Diagnosing is one of them.
I mean, I did used to tell people who came into the rehab that I worked for that they have the right to challenge their mental health diagnosis. And anytime they feel that that's not an accurate diagnosis anymore, they can challenge it. But I always caution them, wait like a year after you're being clean. You really need to make sure that you're not using substances, that it's not in your system anymore, that you're not experiencing post-acute withdrawal, before you really want to challenge those. Because if you just stop taking medications, you can cause withdrawal symptoms, which can lead to relapse. Or if you actually do have one of these things, if you actually do have bipolar and you're taking mood stabilizers that are helping, by stopping taking them, they're no longer helping. But you can challenge and taper down off of meds. It's your mental health. You have the right to challenge any diagnosis.
Yeah. What I find is that when the substance use is resolved, the other diagnoses go away often. Right? But there's also the consequences of the substance use, like the financial problems, the legal problems. But when all that's behind them, if it ever gets behind them, typically the mood improves drastically. Doesn't mean you can't have both. We call that dual diagnosis. But it's not as common as people think. Usually there's a simple explanation for problems. And if somebody's using heroin one day and cocaine the next day, I would look there first before worrying about the rest of the DSM.
Yeah, I would think horses, not zebras.
Right. What we got?
Yeah. All right, so this one's multi-part, and take these questions as you wish. But the person who asked this question says that they're a teacher, so they're curious about, upbringing and stuff like that. So they ask, again, many questions here. What were you guys like as children? Can you describe your personality? Were you shy or outgoing, well-behaved or not, high-achieving or not? What kind of interests did you have? What did you like about your childhood? Things like that. But the part that gets me there is, as a teacher, the person says, as a teacher, I'm curious, because, of course, as adults now, it'd be interesting to see if we had a video of us as kids, seeing that and kind of how one was as a child versus how they are as an adult, I think is an interesting topic there. But yeah, personality, shy or outgoing, well-behaved, high-achieving, interests, favorite part of your childhood, etc.
I wish I could say I was high-achieving, but I definitely had ADD when I was a kid. I was never hyperactive. That's the thing. And that's the thing that happens with a lot of people with predominantly inattentive ADHD is they don't get diagnosed because they're not bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I was definitely a smart kid, but I got a lot of, you're so smart, why aren't you doing better? You could do so much better in this class. And I find, as an adult in the mental health field, I've met and diagnosed a lot of people with ADHD who didn't realize they had ADHD for that same reason, who got the same message. Like, you should be doing way better than this. Why aren't you doing better? And that leads to thoughts of, I'm lazy.
or not good enough,
or not good enough, and that's where a lot of this negative self-talk stuff comes in, which I fell prey to as well. But interests as a kid, Star Wars, Superman, comic books, pretty much the same stuff I'm interested in now.
Yeah, that's gonna change.
There are a few things that I wasn't interested in at the time because I didn't have any like interaction with them. Dungeons and Dragons I didn't become interacted with until I was 18. So I was an adult before I got keyed in on that. But video games were definitely a big thing. Although I did go from the original NES to a PlayStation. Like I didn't have systems in between because my parents wouldn't buy them for me. I had to make a deal to get good grades in high school before my mom would buy me a PlayStation. And then I've had every system since. But as a kid, I always wanted to be high achieving. I just had so many things that would distract my interest. Like I wove through a bunch of different hobbies. I can't even remember them all, but there were so many hobbies that I came up with that I would work on for a couple of weeks and then just never go back to.
Like the instruments piled in the corner.
There was only one instrument. There was the clarinet. There was only one. My parents bought it for my sister when she was in like 3rd or 4th grade. She gave up on it very quickly. And I said I wanted to play the saxophone. And my aunt, who's a music teacher, said, "Oh, if he learns how to play the clarinet, he can transfer and transition that onto the saxophone really easily. It's very much similar instruments." And I was like, "But I don't want to play the clarinet." Like, well, that's what we've got, so that's what you're going to play.
Too bad.
So and my mom made a deal with me. She's like, "When you're 13 years old, we'll get you a saxophone." Right? And I'm like, as I was closing in on 13, we had a president who played the saxophone. And I was like, "I'm getting my saxophone, right?" And Mom's like, "What? No, what? I'm not getting you a saxophone."
And Lisa Simpson too, right?
Because Lisa Simpson. My mother completely forgot about the saxophone thing, and then and that just kind of ended all my interest in playing music. Right, until recently, because now I have an interest in learning how to play the hurdy-gurdy. Although those instruments are really expensive, which is why I bought a laser cutter, because I'm going to make my own.
Awesome.
It was cheaper to buy a laser engraver and cutter than it was to buy one of these instruments, I'm telling you.
Which I guess says a lot about the instrument, or about laser engravers, and yeah.
Well, they've come down in price, but that was me as a kid, and I'm bouncing all over the place as far as my interests went,
right.
And having a lot of different things. I was a big reader too; like I read a lot of stuff. Anyway,
yeah, I would say very similar. A lot of reading, liked academics, video games. I remember the first video game I think was a Pong, right, which is black and white, and you had these paddles, and you could rotate the knob,
and it slid the paddle up and down.
Yeah, these two bars you'd move, and there was a ball in between. That was incredible. We first plugged that in the TV. It's like, what? Our TV can do this?
We're manipulating what goes on the TV. This is nuts.
Well, the first video game was actually table tennis on an oscilloscope. You did the same premise, bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, and then they made it a little more complex. Multiple paddles and multiple balls at the same time, and But then
craziness.
It was
craziness.
Atari 2600 came out. Space Invaders, Combat, eventually Pac-Man, things like that.
Adventure.
Yeah. Was our Yar's Revenge. Yar's Revenge is one. There's just so many of them. Joust. That I used to play. And moved up to, I can't remember the next one. I think it was an Atari XE.
I never understood the ostriches.
Yeah, why are they flying?
I never understood why they were on ostriches.
I wish it was more complex, too. It only used 3 controls. The button to fly, and then you could go right and left. Like, why are we wasting up and down? We only got 5 inputs on the system. I thought maybe they should shoot something. I don't know.
That'd be a good idea.
But yeah, and then moved up through different systems and like that. And then the interest, in cars, when I was old enough to drive, pretty much the same as it is now. More tools, many more tools. Yeah, and more cars. But yeah, things don't change too much with personality as much as people think throughout the lifespan.
Yeah, people
become a little more conscientious as they get older and a little more agreeable. But other than that, they pretty much stay the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess a lot of my interests remain the same as well. I wasn't much for reading when I was a teenager, when I was younger. Well, specifically when I was a teenager. I think I was just, you know, I felt like it was like, oh, I don't have time to read. I got to do all this other stuff I have to do, which was nothing, of course, which was video games, which was, you know, of course the internet had, and instant messaging was big then. So I had a lot of instant messaging to do, or a lot of talking to friends or something to do. I was introverted for sure. And I don't know if I would call myself shy, but definitely not outgoing. Well behaved, for the most part, although, you know, make stupid mistakes when you're a kid. High achieving now. Now, of course you look back now and you're like, I could have done so much more. I could have, but it was obviously not very high on my priority list to do my best in school, and, you know, but of course by the time you get to grad school, you're like, you know, this is really important. I wish I had really paid attention to things more.
You appreciate grad school more.
Right.
Because of when it happens.
Yeah, yeah. And the other question here, what was your favorite part of childhood? I mean, video games were pretty great. I'll agree with you guys on that one. Definitely really great. But I don't know. I guess looking back now, not really having any responsibilities, and everything was new, you know, and you know, like, I'm learning how to drive, and I don't know, you know, I'm not paying anything for this car. This is great. So I guess there's a lot of great things about that, and friendships, and you know, being involved in activities at school and things outside of school. So I guess there was a lot of great stuff about growing up, for me anyway, you know, depending on, I'm sure for a lot of other people too, depending on where they grew up, but probably lack of responsibilities is probably up there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do have to say, I miss some of the completely unsafe practices of when I was a child. Like, I miss being able to jump on a bicycle without a helmet or knee pads or arm pads and just take off around the neighborhood.
Right.
Almost getting hit by cars and just you know, going, hey, what are you doing? Watch out, I'm on a bike here. And then just like riding around, just doing nothing with friends and hitting up parks and things. Just having no responsibilities and being able to do that. I wish I could do some of those things today. Although, if I had the time to do those things, I would probably sit at home playing video games.
Summers were pretty great, right? Yeah, just 3 months where you don't have anything on your schedule. Never happen again.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Unless you actually became a teacher and worked in a school and got a salary that you could, you know, take all year round.
Mike, you were saying things that you miss, and one thing that came to mind was, you know, I always took for granted not having any kind of aches or pains, you know? So, like, I think now about my young kids and, you know, how they're, like, crawling all over the floor and playing with toys and stuff. Like, come play with me. And they want me to take these cars and trucks they're playing with and, like, crawl on the floor with them to play with these things. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man, I hurt just looking at this, you know? So I guess one of the things that,
I don't know, that floor looks awfully hard.
one of the things I appreciate so much more is, you know, being able to do stuff like that. If I had to get on my knees for some reason, to do something, that was much easier as a teenager, than it is now, even in my early 30s. So yeah, that's something that I kind of miss.
Yeah, durability.
Durability.
Oh yeah, kids can fall down, get hurt, skin their knee, get up, and just run off and do things. And I want to look at them and be like, wait till you're 40 and you try just getting up out of a chair hurts.
Yeah, well, you know, when you're young, nothing's worn out.
Yeah,
knees are terrible when you're older. Knees are terrible.
Yeah, well, you evaluate things differently when you're older in terms of like physical activity. Like, it's more like, is that going to hospitalize me or not? When you're a kid, it's like, I'm just going to do it and find out later.
It's like, I'm going to jump off of this tree. Whee!
Right.
Like, I'm looking at that tree and it could fall on me. I'm out of here.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's all we got for
Very
now.
good. Very good. So, yeah, please put any questions in the comment section, and we might have them on the show. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I got nothing else. I'm looking forward to what is chosen for this, though.
I do think there was one other question you mentioned before we started filming. It was just specifically for me. It was about Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. It was what do I think? Which shrine or mythical one of the beasts that I find to be the most difficult?
Right,
I have played Breath of the Wild. Actually, on my third playthrough of it recently. But that's on pause because I'm playing Majora's Mask right now, Legend of Zelda. I realized a few months ago that when I was a kid, just speaking of childhood stuff, I never beat Legend of Zelda on the NES. Never did. Of course, going back and looking at it now, I'm like, oh, that's why, because it made no sense. You have to read the owner's manual of the book in order to get the storyline for it. And there's nothing in the game that points you in any given directions.
Oh, okay.
But I have a Nintendo Switch, and they have this thing where you can play some old NES games. And I saw Legend of Zelda was on there. I was like, I'm going to play it.
Time to beat it.
Time to beat it. I haven't beat this yet. I'm going to beat it. So I started playing it, played through, beat it. I did use walkthroughs because it was something that didn't exist when I was a kid. Was the internet and its walkthroughs. You just Google, how do I get past this part in Legend of Zelda? And get a good guide for it. Right. I tried to use the guide only when I was stuck on something, but I had a lot of fun getting through it, and I just started going through all of the Legend of Zelda games, and I'm currently on the one called Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. But Breath of the Wild is a phenomenal game. It's such a massive open world. You can go where you want, when you want, do things that you want in it, and the graphics are amazing and wonderful. But the legendary beast that I found to be the hardest or the most annoying, really, I think was the camel. As you had to rotate the inside of it, and it just would rotate the different platforms, and you had to try and line them up in different ways, and it just was to me, it was like a giant Rubik's Cube that was irritating. So that was none of them were particularly hard. It was just repetitive. I've got to turn this again. Oh wait, I got to turn this one and this one again. Nope, got to turn them back the other way. So that's my thoughts on Breath of the Wild. Yeah, great game, great game, but nothing too terribly hard about any of it.
Very good. So on that note, we'll wrap up this episode on Jussie Smollett. Perhaps we'll consider Will Smith Slapgate. I think it's called Slapgate.
Slapgate.
Mm-hmm. Slapgate.
In the future, any other ideas, of course, please put those in the comment section. We read each comment. And of course, as I mentioned, the questions might make it on as well. So we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back talking to you soon.